Rolling.
Hello, welcome to the jungle. My name is Amberly Lobo. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Our guest is literally the real-life Zoolander. He has had a 20-plus year career as a highly successful international model. He's walked all the catwalks, worked with everyone from Ralph Lauren to Vanity Fair. His skin literally glows. Not only that, but he also won Australian Survivor All-Stars in 2020, which makes him the actual king of the jungle. It is the one and only Dave Genat.
Welcome to the jungle with Amberly Lobo. Welcome to the jungle.
Well, Dave Genat, welcome to the jungle.
Thanks for having me in the jungle. I'm having some PTSD flashbacks. I feel like I might need to build a shelter in here, but I do like this. I feel quite at home.
I wondered if this would bring back good memories or bad memories. Background for our listeners, you've obviously been on Survivor twice, won it. Yeah, how does it feel to be kind of back in the jungle?
Well, we didn't have couches in the jungle, so this is
and
nice.
fairy
this
lights.
Is a nice addition. There was definitely some lights around, maybe not fairy lights, but no, I feel good. I feel relaxed and comfortable, and the cat's nice.
Oh, that's so good. What was like the best part of that show, worst part?
Oh, worst part, not eating.
Yeah.
Because the no food thing is real. I think a lot of people go, how much of that is real and how much of it is fake? You are making a TV show, but they don't feed you. So you get a cup of rice a day and beans, which you can never be bothered to cook. So you really don't eat unless you win food rewards. So that was really hard because I love my food.
Well, like, you know, I was so suspicious after seeing photos of you from that show. I'm like, he's got like protein powder stashed somewhere secretly because you looked really great.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. The first time I did it, I was like really into fitness and I was like, I'm going to be on a TV show. I want that movie muscle.
Yeah,
and I was working out heaps.
It was working for you.
And I actually struggled really bad. I lost, what did I lose? 11 the first time I played, 12 kilograms the first time I did it. And I was only on the beach for 39 days that time. So the turnaround between shows being 6-7 weeks, I just ate like crazy. And I'd been a model for 20 years, so I never really had a completely unrestricted diet.
Yeah.
And I just got to eat as many cheeseburgers and slices of pizza as humanly possible. To gain fat. So I put on all this weight. I was just lifting like really heavy weights and just eating what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I put back on 15 kilograms in like 6 weeks. And then I lost 16 the second time I played.
Wow.
So that was brutal.
Crazy.
That was brutal.
That's so brutal.
Yeah.
If the producers came up to you now and they're like, hey, can you come back to the jungle, but this time you can smuggle in 3 things, like what would you take?
What would you smuggle in for 3 things? Some kind of fire starter. Did you
start a fire though?
I did, but it took me 3 days.
Oh,
because it was raining. It was really hard to... there's a technique with a bow drill for starting fire that actually works really, really well if the conditions are good, if it's dry. But we had rain for basically 3 days.
Yeah.
It had just rained. And so no food, no fire. We had water for 3 days was brutal. So a fire starter, some kind of fire starter, because you just don't want to go... You don't really want to go one night without fire, but 3 in the rain, brutal.
And
so fire starter.
Fire starter, yeah.
Number 1. Number 2, some kind of snacks.
Yeah.
You get like a little.
You can have one snack.
Get like a little cachet of snacks, and then 3, some kind of sleeping mat. Because sleeping on the beach, like on the sand or on the bamboo, brutal.
Oh,
brutal,
I can't even
brutal.
imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was very, very uncomfortable.
Or this couch. Take this couch
This
with you.
kid sleep like
So
really
good.
Yeah.
No, well, I'm glad to have you back in the jungle. I'm so glad we're doing this. In all honesty, like I think on TV, people can get a little bit distracted by your hair and your eyes and your jaw and your abs.
Not off TV.
But
I haven't started doing this yet. I'm going to do some hair whips.
Well, on a podcast though, we've kind of hidden your beauty from the world, so no one can see how good you look right now.
Oh, you were good. You were good at this. All right.
No, so they're going to have to listen to what you say. So no pressure, okay?
Yeah, no pressure.
Well, I want to start at the beginning because you and I had very similar starts to our careers. We both won modelling competitions.
Yes.
I won the Face of Perth. You won Search for a Supermodel. Now, like, one of us went on to have a 20-plus year career, living in New York, shooting for Ralph, lying on a beach. And the other had zero impact on the industry whatsoever. I mean, you were obviously the successful
Oh, was
one.
I? Good.
Yeah, it was
Thanks,
you.
okay.
Yeah, so let's talk about your career. Take us back to 2002 and Search for the Supermodel.
Oh my gosh, 2002, that's such a long way away.
Mm.
I had been hanging out with a buddy of mine, just finished college, and we were watching television. We had just watched that film Zoolander. I'm giving you this is the fast version because it's a long story. Zoolander, I was obsessed with it. I thought it was the funniest film, but it just seemed like this weird fantasy world. I didn't even realize it was based in how much truth it was based. And we're sitting on the couch, and as that film is playing, they start showing ads for Search for Supermodel, which was kind of like America's Next Top Model before that show came out and all that kind of stuff. And they were asking for people to come down to, I think it was Challenge Stadium at the time, which is now, it's not Bendat, it's, is Challenge Stadium still there?
I don't know.
You know where it's like over near Bendat, there's that big...
Perry Lakes. Is it Perry Lakes?
It's like the Perry Lakes complex there.
I don't know.
So they were asking people to come down, audition for this show, fashion, looking for models. And they wanted men and women, and my buddy was like, you should go and do a Zoolander impression at that competition. Because I was a bit of a serial idiot at that point. I liked goofing around. And he dared me $50 to do it. And I was like, hell yeah, that would be hilarious if someone did that. I didn't realize at the time, obviously everyone in Australia was probably having the same idea. But I went down there and just kind of lucked out that one, Perth was the first city they did the casting in. And two, I was the first person that did it in like the numbers thing.
Yeah.
So they had, like, there was a couple thousand people that came down to do it. I want to say they had like 2,500, maybe 3,000 people show.
Wow, yeah.
So they're just giving everyone numbers because there was so many people. We're on a basketball court. They had the judges sitting at one end and they would just have 100 people at a time with your number right in the middle of your chest, just walk towards them. And they'd gone through, I hadn't showed up super early, but I was kind of in the early numbers, maybe like 800 and whatever. And so I was early enough that when I first walked, I did the full Zoolander thing.
I actually saw a vision of it.
Oh, you did?
Okay. It's not, when he says he does the full Zoolander thing, you did not hold back.
Oh, no, I went.
You did not. Your arms were like...
I had the walk, I was pouting. Like, I was just really trying to be silly for like 2 seconds of television fame, which that's kind of a good metaphor for my career at this point. But I did the full Zoolander walk going down, and I just expected to do that and then
leave,
let you go. But the judges would call people's numbers out, and then you would go advance through to a next round. So they were trying to massively cull the numbers down. So they'd just be like, okay, 765, 785, 835, and 839 or whatever. And that was my number. I was like, whoa, what? And I got through. And that just went on for round after round. So we get back through 5 rounds. I got progressively dumber with what I was doing. I was jumping and pirouetting and spinning and just like being as over the top as humanly possible. And I want to say we're down to about like 100-ish people, and then they called out and they were like, 876, can you stop doing the Zoolander thing, just walk down seriously? And I was like, oh, well, that's it, game over. So I did, and I got through, and then I got into the semi-final for Australia. Then I got to represent WA. There was 5 of us from WA. We went, all lived in a house. It was a reality show. Long story short, I won it.
Yeah, I know, it's wild. It's wild because you were like full on just taking the piss.
Fully taking the piss.
And also, when he says he won it, you weren't just up against a bunch of no names. Like Gemma Ward was in that.
Gemma Ward was
who's
in.
Australia's biggest ex. You like beat Gemma and Nicole.
Well, there was men's and women.
Yeah,
So it was basically sponsored by Ford Models.
Yeah.
At the time, that's a long time ago for reality TV, right? So they hadn't really refined the format to find. They were really actually trying to find people that could model. So out of that show came Gemma Ward, Nicole Trumpfio, who was the female winner my year. Jessica Gomes was out of that show. There's like a whole bunch of people that got discovered because of Supermodel and went on to have careers, not just from my season, but I think it ran for like 4 or 5 seasons. So they had some really big names come out of the show because they weren't just after drama, because I think the format hadn't been tweaked just yet. They really wanted people that could actually model. And Search for Supermodel was a property owned by Ford Models. So Ford owned this property and they ran these model search competitions, just not as TV shows. So each country would do a Search for Supermodel. There was like 50 countries involved in it. They just wouldn't run it as a TV show. Then all the winners got transported to, in our year, which was Punta Cana, to compete against each other. And then Ford would award a contract to the top 3. So
How
that
did
year, I
you
think
do in
Gemma
that?
came third.
Yeah.
So I'm the only guy.
Oh God.
So I got to go to Punta Cana and be the winner by default. So I was the winner of Ford's World Supermodel search by default because there was no one else for me to
Oh,
compete
you
against.
take that. Any
So,
win's a win.
Yeah. I was like, what? It was amazing. That all the girls were all nervous and having to hang out in Punta Cana for 2 weeks and like not eat and do all this crazy stuff. And I was just like crowned because Australia had made a TV show out of it.
Yeah.
So they all did the competition thing, went to New York as part of the prize for winning the thing. And they were like, oh, you should come back. We actually think you could do this as a career. And I was like, this is a career?
Yeah.
Zoolander's real.
Yeah.
And it actually is real. Like, there's so much funny stuff in that movie. Like, whoever has written that film is deeply entrenched in the fashion world in New York.
Like, did they all, when you started your modelling career, like, did you all live in a model house? Was that a thing?
Yeah. The model houses are things. Like, obviously, a lot of that
Petrol
has changed over the
station
years,
fights.
but yeah, mocha frappuccinos, the whole 9 yards. Yeah.
Life is a jungle.
Well, like in my mind, I definitely have this very romanticized vision of your career being like you lying on a beach with like 50 people rubbing oil into you and combing your hair. I mean, I'm
There
sure.
has been some of that.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a lot of that. But in the start, what was it like trying to make it as a model overseas? Was it hard work?
It was really hard. I think, especially because I'd grown up. I'm from Perth, WA. It just seemed like a world away from New York. So I have a really tight knit family, and I think being away from them that young was really bizarre for me. The living conditions I was in New York. So I went from a model house to like a really bad apartment in Queens, which at that point 20 years ago wasn't a nice neighborhood. So I was experiencing these things that I just wasn't used to, and it was pretty eye opening. There was like crazy things going on. Also back in that day, like models were such a more of a commodity, like there was not really much respect in the job. There was a couple of things, I had I remember one of my first test photo shoots. I was like, the guy wanted to shoot some underwear, and I was like, okay. And he came over and like pulled my underwear down and stuff, and I was like, wait, what?
Wait.
Like, what is this? What modeling is? But you kind of those experiences like really hard, especially when you're not making money out of it because you're not being paid well. You're just scraping by. People are judging you every day. You're taking your book in. You got these weird dudes like asking you to do stuff. You go to a casting, they like don't give you the job. It's like rejection.
Yeah.
And then you hit something and they're paying you like 40 grand to go hang out in the Bahamas.
I want to pause on rejection for a while because I know, like, as well as having obviously lovely hair and a smile, like one thing that's not talked about that models actually have to have is like really, really thick skin. Because like you said, you're going into these rooms and you're not the only good looking person in the room. You're with the most glamorous people in the world. And generally, like, you're often just not the look that they want. So you've got to get used to hearing the word no. And if you don't have thick skin, like that, I reckon would make a lot of people crumble.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a very, like, I think as you're, becoming an adult and going through that phase and you're trying to figure out where you belong and who you are, you're trying to find yourself and having people being like, nah, that's not it.
It's
nah,
just
that's
your
not
hair.
it.
It's just your eyebrows.
That's a bizarre...
It's your face.
That's a bizarre thing to happen to you.
Yeah.
But I think this is the advantage as well. Like I said before, like I came from a really close family, so I felt quite grounded. I was also in my 20s early 20s when I started. A lot of people start when they're 14, 15, 16. So I'd started kind of late. So I wasn't going through puberty and experiencing that same kind of rejection that a lot of people do. But it is, it can be brutal. And I've definitely seen like people spiral because of it or end up in weird situations or doing stuff they didn't want to do. And there were so many scandals in modeling through that, especially when I was doing it, through the early 2000s into 2010 and all these things coming out with like Me Too and blah, blah, blah. It's been...
Interesting. Yeah.
it was
Did
an
you have a
interesting time.
way that you framed rejection so that it didn't get you down? Like,
What's funny is like when I was young, I just didn't care.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't care. I had this kind of thing about me where it's like, oh, you didn't want to book me for that. He's an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, and I made it about them having something wrong with them instead of me having something wrong with me. And that actually kind of held me in good stead. I think I just cared nothing about it. And there was something, I think there's some kind of weird thing with modeling. It's like the people that actually really want it and are trying to do it, you can almost smell it on them, and it gets a bit like, no, not for us. Whereas I always thought the people, especially when I was doing it, were coming up, the people that had their own style didn't really care about it at all, or tried to or pretend like they didn't care about it, were the ones that were booking jobs and getting stuff going. And yeah, I just tried to care as little as possible, even though it was my sole source of income. And just kind of pushed it down into a dark box on my inside, all that rejection.
I'm constantly
waiting for it
crying
to like spew
inside.
out
He's
in future relationships.
Is that a tear on your cheek?
Yeah, cue sad music.
For podcast listeners, Dave is currently wiping his eyes on the nasturtium leaves. So obviously it was really tough at the beginning. At what point were you like starting to notice I could kind of make a career out of this?
So I had, it takes a while for all the visa stuff to come through. So I'd gone for about 3 months on just a tourist visa, and they were still sending you out. Sorry, American government, but they were still sending you out for castings. I was doing a bunch of castings, went across to Europe, did a bunch of castings. Didn't really hit anything for probably about 6 months.
Oh God.
And I'd spent this period in, I'd spent most of my money. I was eating like a box of Chinese food that was going to have to last me for a couple of days. Like it was that's where I was on my like budgeting stuff, you know.
Great prep for Survivor 22 years later.
Survivor 20. Yeah,
That's
when you're 20, you don't need to eat that much food. And I was kind of at that point where I thought, no, I'm done with this. I'm going to go back to Australia, and that's it. I'll go back to my career in IT or whatever I was planning on doing at that point. And my manager called me, and she was like, listen, there's this company, Perry Ellis, that wants to see you. I know you're leaving in like 2 weeks, but the shoot would be like 3 days before you leave or whatever. Go see him. I went and saw them, and I booked it. And like I said, it was having gone through that period of not doing anything for so long and just like scraping by. And then this job paid me like $38,000. So it was for a day of work.
Oh, wow.
And Perry Ellis at that time was a big company. They were using all the top models. And I kind of thought, I didn't know much about modeling as an industry. It wasn't like where you could just social media check all who was hot and blah, blah, blah. But I knew who the top guys and girls were. And on that job were probably like 3 or 4 of the top models at the time, and then some of the younger crew, and I was one of the younger crew. And I thought, I want what that guy's got, and this is my way in. And that was really kind of the first job that kicked it off. So I went back to Australia. They paid me like a month later. I had 40 grand in my account, used that money to move back to the States, and the rest was history.
What was like the most incredible shoot experience that you had as a model? Because I know you've done amazing things. Like, what's the most wild one that you did?
There's been some really wild ones, especially I worked with a couple when I had longer hair. I was getting that kind of like cast as like rock and roll type stuff, and some of those jobs, especially in California and Vegas, where they really were doing it rock and roll style, like people trashing hotel rooms and stuff like that. So it was some of those were out of control, but
as in you had to like crash a hotel room.
Yeah, like it's what they want to shoot, you know. They'd be like, okay, it's rock and roll, and you're the lead guitarist, and you're gonna pick up a television, throw it out a window, and you're like, yeah, all right, like dance.
That's just
monkey,
like the TV shows, like where they
like they were asking you to do crazy stuff. But probably my favorite shoot I've done ever happened a bit later in my career. When I was 35, I booked a fragrance for Mont Blanc. I was like the face of this fragrance for Mont Blanc.
No big deal.
No big deal.
I thought I smelt that on you.
It was a bit. Must smell good today. So I had that, because that's kind of the pinnacle for male modeling, is to get a fragrance. So everyone's working towards it. It took me 15 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I hadn't done any fragrances. I'd come close to a bunch and not quite got them.
Why is it the fragrance? Is it just because it's like just you're the brand?
The prestige. Yeah. There's so much money in it.
Yeah.
Like you make so much money as the face of a fragrance.
Yeah.
And that's just where you want to be. And they put you on contract. So that's why they're paying so much. So they're like, this guy's face
is our brand.
Yeah. And back then, brands made that decision. Like they would pick someone and be like, "Here's what we look for," as opposed to trying to, attach their ship to every
Well,
look
now
or
it's like
influence.
that, isn't it?
It's
Yeah.
flipped around so much, so different. But yeah, they were like, they made you. So you were made, and then you didn't have to work for other people if you were on an exclusive contract. And again, just like the money was ridiculous.
What was the actual shoot? Was it just like, I'm
So-
picturing,
sorry,
can I
yeah,
guess?
get back to it.
Was
Yeah.
it like you topless with like water sprayed all over you and a fan?
No, so for this, I was like wearing a suit. I was like quite a high-end shoot, but it was in
boring.
Paris on the rooftop. I was shooting with Peter Lindbergh, who was my
Yeah.
favorite photographer of all time. Rest in peace, Peter. And it was just like the pinnacle of like being in Paris, shooting a massive fragrance with the biggest photographers, with the biggest stylists and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it was just epic.
And when you
was
say
epic.
you were signed to that brand, did that mean like for a year? You just go to all their events?
For a year.
Oh,
So
wow.
I did the fragrance. I became an ambassador for them. It paid me, I want to say 400,000 for the first year, euros, which at the time
Oh my God.
for a couple of days work
What?
is not too bad. It's not too bad. And it was just amazing. And then, yeah, that's what I did. I was on contract with them. The fragrance ran like 3-4 years, and you'd fly around. Mont Blanc has this interesting way of doing business where if you buy a lot of really limited edition Mont Blanc stuff, like the pens and stuff, their
Yeah.
best clients, they'll fly them to Aspen and put you up at the hotel for a week, and they'll release the collection a little bit early so you can buy all the stuff before it comes out, which is what they would do with their best clients. And they would do these Aspen things and retreats where pre-sale on limited edition stuff, they'd make like 11 million bucks in a couple hours because they would release it, and these wealthy millionaires would just buy everything.
And would you just be there as this
And
handsome
I'm just
guy who
there.
just happens to be
yeah,
there?
to schmooze and do dinners and talk to people and network, and it was awesome.
Well, in my brief modeling career, I did this shoot once, and I wondered if you had a similar experience where I like rocked up to the shoot, and it was like how you said at the start. I was young, so I didn't know what was going on. I was like, "Is this modeling?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, just lose her eyebrows," and I was like,
Lose her
like,
eyebrows.
just get rid of, like, wax them off.
What?
And I had never, and this
Oh,
was
geez.
also, I was not getting paid. It was like contrast. I wasn't even getting paid for this shoot. And I was like, I must have been 18. And I was like, I really want to do the photo, but I don't want to tell him not to take my eyebrows up. And I didn't say anything, but the makeup person didn't have any waxing strips. So she had to powder my eyebrows out and put foundation over them. And it was a
goodness.
huge bullet dodge. But like, did you have anything like that where they were just like, oh yeah, like, just do this, and you were like, write a line or whatever, and you were like, what? Like, do you have any
all the
weird
time.
things? Yeah.
They had what I always found funny was my managers were like bulldogs. Like I'm still actually represented by Ford, and it's the best. Like they really cared about the talent and building you as a brand, but they would go insane if anyone even came close to you with scissors. Like the thought of a model getting their eyebrows waxed, they would have lost their mind. So there was a lot more. The power dynamic back then was different. Like agents were the gatekeeper, right? Like they would stop people from having access to models. It wasn't like, oh, you could direct message someone, hey, you want to do a shoot? Like you didn't have access. So they protected us to the nth degree. And there was a couple times where I had haircuts where my manager got on the phone and just reamed out the client, like went absolutely bananas on him for taking like an inch off my hair.
Oh God.
So, but in retrospect, you're like, what does that
Why?
even? Does that even matter? Who
Is
cares?
it even
But
a thing?
to them, it matters.
We had like a 20+ year career. You lived in New York. Was it like overall a really fun experience? Like doing
Yeah, it was
so
amazing.
crazy. It
I
sounds
loved
hard.
it. I loved it. It was amazing. There was heaps of traveling. I think, people go, oh, it was like a dream. It's like waking up from a dream that I got to do that. I was very, very fortunate, very blessed to have that as a career, because there's so much fun stuff. You do all the travel, you make really good money. I know the industry's kind of changed a lot as it is, and you do go through some weird times and a bit of a roller coaster of emotions sometimes, but for the most part, it was just epic.
Welcome to the jungle.
Stop the podcast. I just wanted to hit pause for a second and thank sponsor of the show and friend of the show, American Apparel. I am an OG American Apparel fan, so it was so cool to have them on board. The brand is back, it has relaunched, and if you're a fan of extreme comfort and just an all-round good fit, you need to get yourself into some of that American apparel. They are also sustainable and ethically sourced, which we love. So what are you waiting for? Treat yourself today. Visit americanapparel.com.au. Okay, resume podcast.
Well, the industry has changed a lot in recent years. I mean, in a lot of ways, in good ways. Like it's celebrating like more real body types and shapes and beauty. But back when you and I were in the trenches, I mean, mainly you,
trenches,
not
yeah.
really me with
Make it
my
sound
like
tough, yeah.
hand modeling. But back when you and I were doing it, there was a much more narrow definition of beauty. I know like females had to be really thin. Like, was there an equivalent for males? Did you find like there was a pressure on you to look and be a certain way?
Yeah, definitely. Like we still had the same things about size and weight, and like was getting told to lose weight all the time.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I think it's obviously a lot more pressure on the girls. Guys in their career too go through those stages where like you look like a kid, then like you kind of like look like a man, so it's okay to put a bit more weight on. But there's like real strict parameters on how they wanted you to look. Some of it was probably a bit unhealthy for a lot of people because of trying to fit into that mold. But I always kind of saw it as like, look, if you want to make really good money and you want to be in that top niche
Of that.
you have to try and conform. So I made sure my body was on point and like where it needed to be there. I know it promotes like a kind of lot of bad stuff. And, but I think that's just the price you pay. It's like if you're a professional athlete, you can't complain about having to go training.
Well, I thought it'd be cool to kind of get your advice on, I mean, you have everyone giving their opinion, I'd imagine, on what you should look like, how that should be, and body image is something that so many people struggle with like social media, comparing themselves. Like, do you have any advice for people that maybe struggle with like body image and that comparison mindset? Like, do you have any tips on what you
everyone, I mean, I still look at it, I think for people who are working out a lot, there's still that body dysmorphia of like, oh, I don't look good today or da-da-da. But I think the trick is to just be healthy. And I like being the best version of myself. So exercise, if that's your thing. If you're not into that, don't exercise, but don't get caught up into that comparison of like, oh, I look like this person or that person. And yes, back then, right, there was a lot of smoke and mirrors with what they were doing.
Yeah.
But now everything is fake. It's like you look on Instagram and people are like using filters and the whole thing. It's like AI faces and it's just not real. And I think what it's about is feeling good in yourself by eating healthy food, exercising, and just being the best version of yourself and not comparing yourself to what other people are doing.
Well, like, you're obviously such a high performer. You are. I mean, you've gone from modeling into TV. And you just, whatever you do, you're always at the top of your game, which is you are the king of the jungle. But so I thought it'd be kind of cool to kind of get like some of your like morning routine tips and strategies for people so we could get like a body by Dave, maybe like a body and mind. Body by Dave. So yeah, like run us through it. What is your morning ritual?
Look, I have basically tried every fatty type diet in the world.
Oh, I read one.
Everything
I read an interview with you being like,
What was I
I
doing
wake
at the
up
time?
and have bicarb soda and vinegar or something, and I tried it and I was like, dude, you did not do this.
ACV. Apple cider vinegar is very
Apple
good for
cider
you.
vinegar,
It's
okay.
actually very good for you. I still do that.
Okay.
What I find works for me well at the moment is a bit of intermittent fasting.
Oh, okay.
So I'll start eating around noon. I don't really eat when I first wake up. I just have apple cider vinegar and water.
That's a real
I
thing.
still do that.
It's just,
and a
what
cup
is
of black
it?
coffee.
So it's apple cider vinegar in water.
Yeah, so it's very good for your gut health. Apple cider vinegar. You don't want to drink too much of it, but check it out. There's one Bragg's or something. It's like in a glass bottle, which is good and really good. So I always start the morning off with just a teaspoon of that in water. I'll drink 2 large cups of water to get going, a cup of black coffee, and then I won't eat anything till noon. Then at noon I have eggs, like something protein rich with vegetables, and then dinner, like protein, vegetables. Like I keep it pretty clean. I don't really eat too much carbs.
You don't snack? You're not a snacker?
If I snack, I'll eat like nuts, bananas. I
Yeah.
try to just stick to like whole foods if I can.
Oh, okay. So the carbs thing is a thing. You don't eat much,
I mean, it's like some people, I'll eat white rice. I don't mind white rice. But I think you just have to experiment if you're
What works
actually
for
into
your
that.
body, yeah.
Because all things work differently for different people.
Oh, 100%.
You know?
Yeah. A lot of people tell me, Emily, take creatine. Is that a
yeah, I
thing?
take
Do you
creatine.
take that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
take any other like protein sort of supplements?
Yep, I do a grass-fed whey. So I'll have like at least one protein shake a day, I would say, and then I'll just put a scoop of the creatine in there. I think for guys, creatine, they'll get a bit like
Yeah.
that watery, swollen look sometimes, which
Yeah.
makes them nervous. But once they kind of get through that phase, like it's just really good muscle support if you're working out a lot.
Yeah. Do you work out a lot still or not really?
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I work out a lot.
Yeah. Like what's your thing?
I lift probably 5 days a week.
Oh wow.
I play basketball, I train jiu-jitsu, and do a whole bunch of stuff and stay active. And
Do you have any like mindful things that you swear by? Like do you do a meditation or a journaling or
Yep.
any of that kind of thing?
yeah, not journaling. I do like the mindfulness thing. I'm a very big fan of Wim Hof. I took a Wim Hof seminar before I did Survivor. And he coaches basically all the breath work, like really intense states of breath work. And I think for me, meditation-wise, I needed something a bit more visceral to just still my mind. Because if I just sit and I listen to like a mind space or something, I can't do it. I'm too high energy. I get antsy about it. But whereas with Wim Hof, when I'm concentrating on the breathing and doing different rounds of breathing, I can somehow, for some reason, that visceral feeling of like all the breath work, I can zone in and get meditation that way.
Do you do his ice bath?
I do.
I
Yeah, I'm a
love
big
that.
fan on all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do saunas, but I can get really cold. Like I love filling up the bath with ice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just the
No,
best.
I do both.
I find
I'm
it
into
really like calms your mind and just like makes you really, really present because I feel like you're dying.
Which is not a great feeling.
It's not a great feeling. Well, that was Body by Day.
Yeah, I wasn't super specific.
You're welcome, everyone. Obviously, you're doing so many amazing things at the moment. You're producing with Harley. You're on every other TV show I swear I see. I just wanted to ask you just briefly about TV because we both did travel shows and Rush. It looked so fun. It looked like a joke.
Epic.
I was like, how
Yeah.
does this guy always land these jobs?
Yeah, I basically had a full year between gigs, and I came off of Celebrity Apprentice as a contestant. And I wasn't quite sure where I was going, like because I'm an actor, right? So I did a film in the middle of the year, but it was an indie film. It hadn't been really paying well, and I'd had about a year and a half off of having done.
Oh, was that Pieces?
Anyway, there's Pieces.
Oh,
Yeah.
Pieces by our amazing friend Marty Wilson. Was that?
Marty Wilson.
Marty, we
what a
love
legend.
you.
And I was waiting to I was auditioning for all these jobs during the year for hosting work.
Yeah.
And I came really close on about 5 or 6 different projects, but just didn't hit any. And I was getting like progressively more annoyed at it. I was like, what? Why am I missing out on this show? And one that I came really close with. I was talking with them for a couple of months, and I'd been flown out for the audition and the whole 9 yards, and I thought for sure that's mine. I was being told it was mine.
Yeah.
And didn't get it, and I was so mad.
Yeah.
And then I want to say a month later they called me about Rush, and if I had have gotten that job
You couldn't have
previously,
done
I couldn't have done
Rush.
Rush. And Rush was actually like dream job for anyone in television or presenting. Flown 9 countries around the world, like all the best festivals around the world. I was in business class, 5-star hotels. I didn't have to do any of the competition work the poor guys did.
You actually got to eat normal food.
got
I
to
think I
eat
saw
whatever
a
I
billion
wanted.
photos of you like always eating, and I'm like, this guy.
Yeah, that was their little hook. The EP, Tara, she was amazing, and they were just trying to figure out what a little hook could be for when the kids kind of came up to meet me at a location. She's like, oh, well, let's have it that you're like always snacking on some local cuisine. I was like, that works for me. That's great.
As long as it's not rice and beans,
As
I'm fine,
long
guys.
as it's not rice and beans, yeah.
No, well, it strikes me like throughout your career, it's honestly so inspirational. Like even right at the beginning with the modeling, 6 months before you got a job, and even just hearing that then about how you would just stick at something for so long, even though you get the setbacks. I guess if people are tuned in and they feel like they're getting all these different obstacles or knockbacks, do you have any advice for them about how to stick the path?
Yeah, like just keep going. I think everyone experiences rejection and knockbacks in any career. It's such a commonplace thing that people have happen to them. But a friend of mine actually sent me like this little cartoon when I was going through some time where I was like, man, I'm not working. I think I'd been, like I was saying, going for all those auditions. And it was a little gold miner who was like digging a tunnel under the ground, and he'd quit. He'd put the axe down and he'd stopped. But we get the cross section. You can see there's a gold nugget on the other side. If he had to just hit that wall a couple more times, there would be a nugget there. So you just have to have your goal in mind. And I'm like manifesting stuff. You have your goal in mind and you keep working towards it. And instead of thinking of those things as setbacks or rejections, just think of them as stepping stones to getting you to the gold nugget.
Yeah.
Because if you quit because someone told you no or told you, oh, no, you can't do it, you're done. But if you don't quit, you will eventually get to that goal you wanted. You just maybe have another step back or something will stop you or someone doesn't believe in what you're doing, and you just have to have self-belief and keep taking steps towards that end goal. And you will get there. I promise.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite quotes, I'm going to botch it up, but it's like something like, I want to say it's Da Vinci. It's not. Don't quote me.
Too late. Everyone's on their phone. Da Vinci
I'm going to go
quotes.
with it. But I feel like he says something like, if you fix your course on a star, you can navigate any storm. And it's that whole idea of like, make your vision so big and like really believe in it that like it doesn't matter what like is getting thrown at you. You just head in that direction and take those micro steps and you'll kind of get there. That's really interesting that you manifest. Like, can I just ask you, how do you do that? Is it just like a...
I mean, I think of what I want to do.
Yeah.
So for example, with Survivor, I just became hyper focused on winning it. And I just manifest, I think about what I want to do. And then I keep telling myself, like, what are steps to working towards that goal? Shoot for the moon, land on a star. So I think that sometimes things feel so unattainable, but running 100 kilometers feels unattainable.
Yeah.
But if you don't take the first step, you're not going to get there. And just one step after the other.
So when you say that, you almost like pick the thing you want and set that goal, and then you almost focus on the pipeline, on like the process of how to just get to that thing.
Yeah. If you don't know how to do something, ask someone.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I want to make a movie, I want to make a TV show, or I want to do a thing. Every little step gives you experience, it's like playing a video game. You just want to up your experience level every time. So
yeah, well, I feel like you naturally just do that. Like with the modeling, it's not like you knew what you were doing. You were actually just doing the Zoolander thing. And then you've gone into reality TV, but now like you're producing as well. And I feel like you're just like, whatever, land on it. Like it's so cool. Like how much of a problem do you think it is that so many people think they've got to learn every possible thing before they give something a go?
No, have a go.
Yeah, just have a go.
Yeah, have a go. You learn as you go. I think obviously it is just gaining experience. That's, again, looking at setbacks like experience as opposed to like rejections being like, like dream killers.
Yeah.
They should be experience. Like that's gaining experience in what you're trying to do. So just flipping that mindset around, but just give stuff a go. Have a crack.
Life advice with Dave. No, wait.
In the jungle.
In the jungle. Well, my guy, it has been so fun. Where can people follow or find you?
You can, I basically use only Instagram at the moment, and that's just my full name, DAVIDGENAT. We have Freerider on YouTube. Rush is on Channel 9. You can watch it digital on their Night Now platform. What else am I doing? We got some charity stuff coming up.
Just doing everything. Just check him out.
just
Do
take
a little Google. Do a little Google. No, well, thank you so much. I always like to say life is a jungle. I feel like I've sapped every part of inspirational advice out of you, but I'm going to ask for one more thing. So if life is a jungle, could you leave listeners with any final DG parting thoughts?
If life is a jungle.
Yeah, like how to navigate the jungle.
Yeah, if life is a jungle, be the lion.
Oh, I love that. DG over and out.
That's it.
How good was that? Thank you so much for listening. I hope you got a lot out of it. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe and share it out with your family and friends. You can find me on socials at Amberly Lobo. And for more information on the show, including all the behind the scenes pics and videos, head across to amberlylobo.com. That's it. Have an amazing day, whatever you're up to. And remember, life is a jungle. Be the lion.